Hi, this is Lenny Liebman of Black Hat, and I'm here with Sean Convery, who is VP and General Manager of the Security and Risk Business Unit of ServiceNow. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Good to be here.
I'm glad you're here too, and the first thing I want to talk about is this brand new Ponemon study on a vulnerability response. We were talking earlier, and there were some things about that report you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, well, we surveyed about 3,000 security professionals to find out what was going on with how they responded to vulnerabilities and through the patching process. And we actually found out some really interesting data, primarily focused on why this problem is so hard. You sort of think, well, it's obvious if you patch your systems more aggressively, you're going to have less attack surface. And people on average have 8 full-time folks, the equivalent of 8 full-time folks working on patching. 50% of them are looking to hire more, on average about 50% more. And we just looked at that data and said, it makes no sense that this is such a big problem. 57% of the folks who were breached with a pre-existing vulnerability that they had known about. So we spent a lot of time in this study just trying to tease out what actually is at the root of this.
The patching issue, though, really highlights the need to do basically what's routine tasks, but you have to be able to do them sort of quickly and reliably, and maybe most importantly, at scale.
Right, and that's actually what we found, this patching paradox that we call it. Because it's so hard, you'd think it'd be a lot more impact and a lot more results behind the efforts that everybody were putting in, but it turns out these manual processes that people are going through are really what's robbing people. So we found, for example, an average of 12 days per update is wasted in manual coordination. Over half of the people who responded said they spend more time coordinating between the app owner, the IT owner, the security owner, the risk team, doing that coordination versus the actual patching itself.
And automation then, is that a big part of ServiceNow's value prop?
Absolutely. So at ServiceNow, we have been building an orchestration and a workflow capability on the IT side for many, many years. And we have spent the last, coming up on 3 years now, building that from the ground up, focused on security and risk teams to help those teams leverage the same power that our IT customers have been leveraging for close to a decade now.
Automation, though, is not only about getting those tasks done. Certainly in InfoSec, we have a burnout issue, and routine tasks can really lead to that. And it also then frees our InfoSec talent to focus on higher value tasks.
Yeah, we talk about this idea of automating the mundane, right? So how do you kind of take those things that are just wasting your time and get those off of your plate? When we talk to security teams, they'll tell you, responding to a user-reported phishing email, which takes about 20 to 30 minutes on average, doing that dozens of times per day is not a recipe for job satisfaction, right? If we can reduce that, which we can, and have customers in production who reduce that to less than 2 minutes, that's 28 minutes you can spend actually hunting for the more advanced attack, which is what many folks got into the security industry to do in the first place.
It's really important because you've got to retain these people if by some chance you're able to onboard the talent that you need. You also have the risk in your title, and I wanted to ask you about that because certainly, for example, Gartner has just sort of reframed GRC as integrated risk management. You want to talk about that reframing?
Yeah, they actually took 3 different magic quadrants and 2 market scopes and compressed them down to a single magic quadrant. And ServiceNow is actually really excited. We were listed as a leader in that magic quadrant. And I think part of why is it's much more of a platform play. If you think about the role that risk plays in an organization, yes, it's part of IT, it's part of security, it's part of G&A and finance, legal. And so how do you get all these various teams to coordinate together and execute on a consistent process in a more automated way to get better results? And for security professionals, they're thinking to themselves, how do I use risk as my North Star to determine how I want to guide my own security investments? So that tight linkage between security and risk is really what we see in our customer base and why we oriented ourselves internally that way as well.
So that makes a lot of sense because we certainly want to align our efforts with risk as opposed to just problems. But it still raises another question when you talk about InfoSec professionals, because we have this other question, right, which is you're proposing a platform that will allow us to automate tasks and provide some benefit, but we're being offered a lot of technologies that offer us some ROI. We can only acquire so many. We can only have relationships with so many vendors and implement so many tools. So how do we bubble up this automation play to the top of our strategy for the coming years?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to deciding what's most important as an organization for any given enterprise. So what we've seen in talking to customers is they say, look, we have, I think an average organization, or on average an organization has over 80 different security vendors. Right? I've talked to some that have in the hundreds of different security vendors. And they all say, look, I'm having trouble getting value out of the investments I've already made. And so what we see is an opportunity to help organizations establish a consistent process, pull the alert data in, be able to take orchestrated action so that you're getting more value out of the investments you've already made. You know, this capability that we've been working with our customers on is really around just giving people time back in their day by taking these tasks, making them more automated, making it easier for the level 1 analyst to, come into the role and get immediately productive, and drive better visibility throughout the organization on the state of security. So it's a very sort of honest, blue-collar approach to solving this problem, and certainly doesn't prevent you making any other investment you want on the most advanced algorithms to detect things, but once you detect it, you have to respond to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So if somebody finds your arguments compelling and they want to now act on it by getting engaged with you guys, what do they do?
Yeah, so ServiceNow.com, we have an entire solutions area that gets into all the details of what we're offering, and we'd love to see everybody at the Black Hat Conference where we're going to be demoing all of our latest and greatest capabilities.
Great. Thanks so much, Sean.
Yeah, thanks so much.
This is Lenny Liebman again from Black Hat. Thank you so much for your time. We've been speaking to Sean Convery, again, of ServiceNow. Hope to see you again online soon.